Hey guys, it's your girl Samantha, and today I wanted to report on a story that was just published by NPR.org on October 19th, 2021. Why are so many Americans quitting their jobs? Goodbye, farewell, adios, sayonara. Workers have been giving their bosses an earful of such words as of late. Last week, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics announced that 4.3 million Americans, or 2.9% of the entire workforce, quit their jobs in August. That was a record-breaking month, piggybacking on previous record months. The Great Resignation is real, and it can be seen across virtually all industries. It's common to see a surge in quitting when the job market is tight and there's a cornucopia of open positions. But what's happening now is unlike anything we've seen before. Economists and pollsters are still investigating what's going on. Are generous government benefits encouraging people to quit? Maybe, but some evidence suggests not. And I agree with that. I don't think that the government benefits that we're getting is enough for people to quit in this expensive country. America has become, especially with inflation, extremely expensive to live. People cannot even afford to buy a starter home. Real estate costs are through the roof. Just everything, gas prices, groceries, everything's so expensive. So even with what is the stimulus checks that we're receiving, the unemployment benefits, I just can't see people walking away from a job because of that. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I do think those benefits might help. People walk away if they felt like they had better options, but I don't know if it's enough for people to just walk away as much as they've been doing. So let me continue. It says, are people angling for a raise after decades of stagnant pay? Probably, yeah. The family pressure, and I agree, I do think it's probably because we haven't had a pay raise in like 2 decades, but the cost of living steadily increases at least 2% every single year. So I mean, you do the math, two times 20 years, that's significantly high when you consider the fact that wages hasn't changed just like the 90s. So the family pressures imposed by closed schools, the closing and reopening of businesses, the reshuffling of the population to different locations and industries, and the fear of the virus in face-to-face settings have all also almost certainly played a role. But the historic rise in quitting also seems to be about more than all of this. In a new working paper, the UC Berkeley economist Ulrike Malmendier suggests there's something existential behind the Great Resignation. The pandemic and the rise of remote work have changed the way we view our lives and the world. The idea that our experiences shape our choices is hardly radical. And Malmendier isn't alone among scholars in suggesting that soul searching during the pandemic helps explain the surge in quitting. And so basically what they're saying, which I completely agree with this, is that I think when the country shut down last year, it gave people a chance to really reevaluate their lives and just look at like what life could be like for real. I mean, everybody started having to work from home because of the coronavirus. And I actually spoke to someone at one of my closings, and she said she didn't even know that she could do her job from home. She had no clue that she could do her job remotely. So the fact, of course, I knew that more people could be working from home because my background is information technology. But I think a lot of people who are not affiliated or like in that field, they probably had no clue the type of capabilities that this country has, and that it is possible for a really good percentage of people to be able to work remotely and work from home and be around their children more, be able to have more flexible schedules, be able to save on gas and clothing, and just even like the mental and emotional aspects of it. Because if you're like an introvert like I am, or you just you just suffer from like depression or anxiety, things like that, being able to work from home really, really helps with those types of conditions. So I think that plays a huge role in it, is people realize, wow, I can do this from home. Like, why am I having to come back in the office? And that's probably one of the main game changers, because I don't know too many people, honestly, who want to be in corporate America, who want to be in an office setting with their annoying, coworkers and their bosses who they can't stand. I just don't. I just don't know too many people who would sign up for that if they didn't have to. Like, and plus, another thing people really benefited from during the pandemic, like shutdown, was being able to move to areas that were more affordable because you can work remotely. Now that was definitely significant in probably a lot of people's lives, financially especially, and just their well-being. Because like, imagine like you're living in like New York City or Los Angeles or some overly populated, just congested area with the traffic you're dealing with, commute, like an hour commute home, to go to work, to come home. Like, you're missing out on so much family time. And then to be able to live in a nice like area, say like you get to move more to like nature, hiking, because I remember during the pandemic, that was one of the first things that people were able to do, was to like go outside and hike and do stuff like that, as long as we kept our distance from each other. That was like one of the first things that opened up for us, was like the national parks and being able to just be out in the open, fresh air. So the COVID-19 really, I always tell people, it really had a lot of positives to it. Like, of course, it shouldn't have come to that where people had to die. And especially because Trump is such an idiot, way too many people died who didn't have to die. But it was so many other aspects of it that really, to me, it really opened up the doors of America life and of just what America really is to the world. Because America lies a lot, and it's a narcissistic country, and it pretends it's something it's not. And COVID-19 blew the lid off of all of that. It really just made it really obvious that America's racist, that America is, not the best country in the world. And America's still suffering, and it's going to continue. It's just really suffering the consequences of all the things that our government and private companies have been doing to American citizens for so long. It's just it's going to crash and burn. Everything's just kind of imploding on itself, because that reality is like setting in. You can only lie for so long. So, let me continue. So, let's see here. Where were we? Okay, so it says Texas A&M psychologist Anthony Klotz, who predicted and coined the term the Great Resignation back in May, credits pandemic epiphanies with motivating many workers to depart their jobs for greener pastures. But experience effects, as Mal Mendier calls them, remain remarkably under-investigated in economics, which tends to be more focused on the cold material incentives that influence our behavior. Mal Mendier has been working to change that. Experiences that shape our economic lives. Mal Mendier says her journey to unlocking the mysteries of how personal and collective experiences shape our economic choices began when she was thinking about her home. Now, Mendier is from Germany, and she says the mores of her home country inspired her to investigate the idea that experiences can dramatically affect people's economic decisions. And I hate to say it, but like, duh, like, okay, so the reason why I can speak so, in depth on this subject is because I left my career behind, and it was because I wanted to spend more time with my children. It's just something that simple. I wanted to work from home, and this is before the pandemic. It was back in 2017, and I was basically in a battle with my company because a lot of people were working from home, but they were being racist and they weren't allowing me to work from home, and sexist, and they weren't allowing me to work from home. And so, we basically went back and forth, and they ended up firing me. Basically, they called it a layoff, but they basically fired me. And I took my shit and just never looked back. I decided that's it. I'm betting on myself. I have all this education behind me. I'm intelligent. I can figure this out. I'm going to start my own business and do something else. And I just walked away from corporate America. And because I knew, like I said, I was working in the IT field. So I knew that the possibility of working from home was a possibility. And I just could not wrap my head around the fact that I'm looking at people I don't like more than the people I do like, which is like my children and, your partner and your loved ones. And so when you balance it out, it was like a no-brainer. There was not enough money in the world that I could say would keep me from my kids. I felt like I didn't have children to never see them. And I was working like 9-hour days. My commute was short because I had to move in a high cost of living area to live like right next to my job. And I really wasn't even living where I wanted to be living. I wanted to live in Maryland, but I was stuck in Northern Virginia in this rental in this neighborhood that it didn't speak to my spirit like it does. Like, I'm living where I want to live now. I'm in a single family home. And on a cul-de-sac. I love my neighborhood. We have deer outside, greenery, huge yard. It's beautiful. And I would not have been able to experience like the chance of like finding where I really want to be in this country if I would have stayed locked in my cubicle in corporate America. So, it's just like, it's kind of like, again, like I said, a no-brainer to me that experiences trump money. Because they say money can't buy you happiness. It cannot. Because I was making good money, but it wasn't enough. I just would have never been satisfied with that money when I couldn't see my children. And plus, around that time, I had just had my 5-year-old. So he was 2 months old. And you know how mothers are. Like, I wanted to be home with him. I wanted to be home more. I didn't want to put him in some stranger's care and put him in a daycare. And then paying astronomical prices for someone else to watch him. I just did not want to do that. And so I was able to start a business and work from home and stay home with my baby. And that's what Americans should be able to do. Like, we're the wealthiest country. We should be able to match other developed countries and be able to stay home for at least a year, the first year of our children's lives. And that doesn't even mean you're not working. You could be working, but let us work from home. Why can't America, this old fogey country, why can't it let some of that old shit go? They want to look in your face. They want to have you in the office so they can be looking over your shoulder. This is like, to me, the old white man America. This whole resignation is happening because people are evolving and they're just like, and honestly, it's late. The evolution has come late, and it was only come because it's been forced to come because of coronavirus. If the coronavirus pandemic did not happen, we'd still be sitting in our offices with 3-hour-long commutes daily, miserable, living in high cost of living areas. You're basically at this point working just to live. You're not living to work. You are working to live. So you're just basically going to work just so you can try to live your life in like whatever high cost of living area you're living in. That's how I look at it. I know they say the other way around, but that's how I look at it. I feel like I was literally just going to work just to pay for my life that I didn't get to enjoy. I didn't even get to see it. I was always at work. My children even told me, "Mom, I hate your job," because I never got any time off. Every time they wanted to do something, I was like, I'm sorry, baby. Like, I only have 2 weeks of vacation, and I used half of it for mental health reasons. It was horrible. It was horrible. It was horrible. So, yeah, just, I know a lot of people can agree with that sentiment. You're basically just literally working just to pay bills. It's horrible. Okay, so let me see here. So it says the Germany she grew up in and now watches from afar is one that is hyper vigilant about inflation, whether it's in the Bundesbank, which is the central bank, or the Bundestag, which is the legislature, or the Bundeskanzleramt, which is the equivalent of the White House. German leaders tend to be inflation hawks, flocking toward tight money, balanced budgets, and price stability. These policy preferences have at times pitted Germany against other EU nations when they have negotiated their shared monetary policy at the European Central Bank. A little over a decade ago, Malmindier was on the faculty of the Stanford Business School with Stefan Nagel, who is also from Germany. And we were talking about why we Germans are so obsessed with inflation, she says. The answer was kind of obvious to them, given their knowledge of their country's history. If there's one nation that has exemplified the perils of inflation, it's Germany. After losing World War I, Germany struggled with the burdens imposed by the Treaty of Versailles, which forced the nation to pay reparations for the war and hobbled some of its main industries. The Weimar Republic, and there we go with reparations again. Again, everyone's getting paid reparations except African Americans, which hashtag ADOS. And honestly, everyone's getting paid reparations except black people across the globe. It's like when white people do shit to white people, they pay them reparations expeditiously. But when it's black people, African and African diaspora, we don't see a dollar. They constantly oppress, uproot, destroy our countries, our livelihoods, our well-beings, and they don't care. And then they want to run around and pretend like they're not fucking racist, and they want to, run around and pretend like we don't understand why you don't like us, and they try to call us racist. No, I just hate you because you clearly hate us. Racist is actually being able to oppress an entire group of people. Racism isn't just a feeling. Like, me hating white people is not going to do anything versus white people hating me. A white person hating me can get me killed. It can make me lose my job and my life and my home and my kids, being able to be sheltered and clothed and fed. It can ruin my life when white people don't like me. That's racism. So, the Weimar Republic dealt with its financial problems through deficit spending and printing lots of money, and inflation took off. Prices quadrupled every month on average for almost a year and a half between 1922 and 1923. Historians blame the skyrocketing prices for destabilizing the democratically elected government and facilitating the rise of the Nazi Party. In short, it didn't end well. And that's the thing I like about Germany. They actually learn from their mistakes. I think America could take a page out of their book and take some notes and move accordingly, because America doesn't learn. They're trying to block critical race theory, hashtag support CRT, and they don't want our children to learn about the truth of America, which in turn opens up the doors of our history repeating itself. And this country's it's just going to collapse. It's collapsing now as we speak because they don't learn. Like, Germans basically said they learned from their mistakes when they, started printing money and getting crazy with the spending. And that was just 1 year. Or they said for like almost a year and a half. Between 1922 and 1923, they did this. And prices quadrupled and money, cost of things rose. And they said because of all this, their their government destabilized, their democratically elected government destabilized because of the skyrocketing price, because of skyrocketing prices. That's what historians believe. And this facilitated the rise of the Nazi Party. So doesn't that sound like January 6th? It's just, this is like insanity to me. Like, you literally reading about it, and we are still, America government is still allowing, and I think that's why some places are trying to pay reparations, because they see this coming. But the American government, which is the main ones that should be paying reparations, they're still sitting here twiddling their thumbs, tweeting about the rich paying taxes, and higher taxes, or UBI payments, child buy. So we wonder whether the hyperinflation experience in the early 20th century was transmitted through generations, shaping us in a long-lasting manner. Malmendier says, it led Malmendier and Nagel down a path to researching how past experiences can influence people's economic behavior and attitudes. Malmendier and Nagel's first influential paper in this area was titled Depression Babies: Do Macroeconomic Experiences Affect Risk-Taking? They wanted to know whether those who grew up in the aftermath of the stock market crash of 1929 were less likely to invest in the stock market. They found the answer was a resounding yes. The Great Depression, they found, created an entire generation that was skittish about investing in stocks. Those who came of age in the roaring 1950s and 1960s, in contrast, were much more gung-ho about it. And those experiences almost literally rewire our brains. In a new working paper, Malmendier sketches out a prototype of how we should think about the ways in which personal and generational experiences can systematically affect our economic behavior. She reviews the literature and finds patterns. Economic calamities like hyperinflation, stock market crashes, and unemployment spikes tend to affect people's attitudes and choices for a long time, but people are particularly reactive to what happened recently. These quote-unquote experience effects tend to be quote-unquote domain-specific, she says. So a stock market crash doesn't seem to affect, for example, people's purchases of bonds. Malmendier cites research from neuroscience, which she says finds that our experiences almost literally rewire our brains. Evidence on neuroplasticity reveals that personal experiences and learning alter the strength of neural connections and fine-tune the brain structure to those past experiences, she writes. Is known in the field as quote-unquote use-dependent brain development. Research shows that this is especially true for kids. Childhood trauma, for instance, can profoundly affect people's outcomes as adults. This includes putting them at great risk of substance abuse, criminal and antisocial behavior, depression, dropping out of school, and chronic health problems. One recent study found this laundry list of problems includes greater financial strain. In short, experiences, whether personal or collective, seem highly relevant when studying inequality, poverty, and the economy. And for the effects of the pandemic, Malmendier predicts that the legacy of forced teleworking, homeschooling, and other dramatic social and economic changes will continue to shape our choices long after the viral danger recedes. At the very least, there will certainly be many of us working new jobs. I agree. And not even working new jobs, teleworking jobs, like working from home. So let me know what you guys think about this story as to why people are walking away and why the quote-unquote great resignation is occurring. Just why are so many people quitting their jobs right now? Sign off, let me know in the comments sections below. Sound off. And I will see you guys in the next video. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks, guys, for watching. Peace.